We are here at talkSPORT. Got Eddie Hearn alongside me. Eddie, you've just made this big domestic dust-up between Craig Richards and Joshua Whyte. Talk us through the thinking behind making this fight.
It's just such an obvious fight. You know, we live in a sport where sometimes the biggest fight and the most obvious fights don't get made. Two guys, both on the verge of fighting for a world title, probably would normally say, let's just wait. You know, we've got Canelo Bivol coming up. Maybe I get the winner. I say, no, guys, fight each other. This is a big fight. It's one guy from Crystal Palace, one guy from Croydon, two World Championship contenders. It's a brilliant domestic fight. So fair play to both of them. May the 21st. The winner's going to go on, may get the Canelo Bivol winner, and the losers, you know, they're still going to be relevant. So you've got to be willing to roll the dice in this sport, and these guys are doing it.
I spoke to you years ago and you spoke about how excited you were about Joshua Whyte. Does this feel like the next chapter in his career, taking on fights with real jeopardy?
Yeah, absolutely. And when you look at the two backgrounds, both very different. You know, Joshua Whyte, standout amateur, went to the Rio Olympics, won bronze medal, signed the big deal, boxed on all the big shows. Craig Richards, a very different path. Took the Buglioni fight on a week's notice. You know, took the Shakan Pitters fight in his backyard, knocked him out. Jumped in with Dimitri Bivol, and he's been through a very different path. But two genuine world title contenders. And for Whyte, a lot of people for a long time have said this guy could win all the belts at 175 pounds. But been a little bit inactive, and there's a lot of people in boxing that believe this is a real 50-50 fight. Maybe to the casual fan who have seen the build of Joshua Whyte, he's expected to win this fight, but this is going to be a tremendous battle.
What do you think is at stake for the winner? Because you mentioned the fight between Bivol and Canelo at the start of May, a busy May already for Matchroom, but what do you think is realistic for the winner?
Well, Canelo Alvarez wants to fight in the UK. You know, we've got this deal with him now where he fights Bivol. If he's successful and Gennady Golovkin wins, we'll do Canelo against Golovkin in September. And Canelo Alvarez and Eddie Reynoso both want to fight in December. They've asked me to look at options for Guadalajara and London. You know, we've got John Ryder, who's mandatory at 168 pounds, and you've got the winner of this fight. Both guys, great options, great opponents for Canelo Alvarez in December. So there's a lot that's got to go right for everybody. But if Canelo Alvarez wants to fight in London in December, which we're told that he would like to explore that option, the winner of this fight is a clear front runner, because this is an official eliminator for the winner of Canelo against Bivol. So massive opportunity for both in this fight. And I would certainly love to bring Canelo Alvarez to the UK.
That'd be awesome. Looking at May, it really is filling up now. What is the latest with AJ? When and where is he going to fight? Well,
I think you'll see AJ in June. I mean, a lot depends on, you know, Usyk. I believed a couple of days ago actually was quite likely to take this fight with AJ. You saw Vasily Lomachenko come out last night and say, I'm not going to fight Kambosos, I'm going to stay in the Ukraine. Will Usyk follow suit? We're happy to give them the opportunity to obviously be with their families, be with their country, but AJ needs to fight. You know, he's ready to go in June against Usyk, which is the absolute priority, or against an interim opponent. And of course, May, as you said, you know, even at the end of April, you've got Taylor Serrano at Madison Square Garden. Then you've got Bivol against Canelo in Vegas. Then you've got Richards against Whyte now, May 21st, and AJ will follow suit in June.
Frank Warren was telling us last week that he's made initial contact about a potential fight with Joe Joyce. Which interim opponents?
Not with me. Not with me.
What interim opponents are you realistically looking at for AJ if it isn't Usyk?
I think Joe Joyce is an option. I mean, look, it would make sense with a new trainer preparing for Alexander Usyk to fight a southpaw. And the two that stands out is Otto Wallin and Luis Ortiz. But there's also Joe Joyce. You know, he talked about Deontay Wilder. I've said before, an interim fight. You know, you look at people who have had interim fights. Look who they've fought. AJ's talking about fighting top 10, top 5 heavyweights in a warm-up fight to Alexander Usyk. So, of course, everybody's very vocal. You know, we've had no approach from Frank Warren about a fight with Joe Joyce at all. But I'm sure they want the fight. Of course, AJ's it's like the Willy Wonka golden ticket. You know, it's like Canelo Alvarez. They're the two biggest stars in the sport. So everybody wants to fight Anthony Joshua, and he will decide who he fights. But one thing you can be guaranteed of is he will always be in great fights, because he always takes on the best in the division.
Just a month to go now until Fury against Whyte. Have you spoken to Dillian much in recent times? Do you think this silence is going to continue?
Yeah, I think so. I think he's just working away. You know, he's working away. There's still loads of arguments going on back and forward between the camps. And I think Dillian's just keeping himself to himself. He's just training. You know, we hope that nothing stops the fight from happening, you know, and everybody gets in the ring safely. And we see a good fight. And I believe Dillian Whyte can win that fight.
Is that realistic? Do you think Dillian has got a real chance of victory?
Absolutely. Absolutely, because, you know, people overlook fighters. Dillian Whyte has done plenty of rounds with Tyson Fury. Whatever you want to believe about sparring, Dillian Whyte tells me he's had Tyson Fury on the floor multiple times in sparring. Who knows? But this is what Dillian Whyte's told me. There's no reason to make that up. He believes that he can take Tyson Fury out. Tyson Fury is an outstanding heavyweight, the best in the world right now on paper. And Dillian Whyte's got to go in there and beat him. He punches extremely hard. He's a great body puncher. He's got a great left hook. And if you switch off for a second, he'll switch you off and he'll switch your lights out. And I really believe he can beat Tyson Fury.
Finally, talks underway for a fight between Andy Ruiz Jr. and Derek Chisora. Do you think that fight happens?
I don't know. I actually spoke to the PBC last night and they're talking about making Luis Ortiz against Andy Ruiz. So we'll see. But I love that fight. The two fights I want for Chisora are Chris Arreola and Andy Ruiz. You know, I was at the UFC with Chisora on Saturday. He's just ready to fight. He was ready to get in the octagon on Saturday, you know, and he'll always be in great fights while he's fighting. He feels good, he feels fresh, and he wants to go to war again.